Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Dear students, hope you are fine, safe and sound. Welcome to the course Introduction to Linguistics. In the previous lectures, we have talked about phonology and morphology. And in today's lecture, we will be learning about another topic in linguistics, which is called syntax. For many linguists, syntax is one of the most important fields of study because it is syntax that allows us to combine words and phrases and sentences in unique ways. So we can say that syntax is the arrangement of words and phrases to create well-formed sentences in a language. Knowing a language includes the ability to construct phrases and sentences out of morphemes and words. The part of grammar that represents the speaker's knowledge of these structures and their formation is called syntax. Dear students, let me give you an example. If I say, I want these books, it is well coordinated sentence that conveys an idea absolutely well. But what if I say, books, these want I? Does it make any sense to you? Of course not. Why? Because the word order in this sentence is disorganized. They are just words here and there, but there is no coordination and organization in the sentence structure. So in other words, we can say and we can define syntax is the study of sentence patterns of a language. The aim of this study is to show uh, that what syntactic structure is and what the rules that determine syntactic structures are alike. So before we proceed, look at uh, look at this slide in front of you. What do you see in it on the screen? You might be wondering what it is. What does it mean? Colorless green ideas sleep furiously. Isn't it a strange sentence? What do you understand by this? Well, this is really quite a famous sentence which is composed by Noam Chomsky in his 1957 book Syntactic Structures. As an example of a sentence that is grammatically correct but semantically means that in terms of meaning it's completely incorrect, as you can see that it doesn't convey any sensible ideas. So when you look at this, you immediately recognize that there is something wrong with this sentence. Although it is grammatically correct sentence and it is perfectly well formed sentence, as it has two objectives, you can see very clearly with the noun ideas, colorless and green, they are two adjectives. It has a verb which is sleep, and it has also an adverb in the end of the sentence, which is furiously. So all of these elements are in the right order and it's grammatically correct. Then what's wrong in it? Okay, so to understand this, first of all, we'll be talking about lexical categories, which are also known as parts of speech, which will be very important for understanding phrase structure rules, and which are also very important to understand to draw a tree diagram that we'll be doing in the next upcoming slides. So let's talk about lexical categories, and I know these are not new for you, but we are going to have a very quick recap or review of all these lexical categories, which you can see on the screen. So the first one you can see is a noun. Noun is typically some sort of a thing, face, a name of a person, or the name of anything that can be used as a subject or in place of an object in a sentence. For example, cat, house, Tom, John, these are the names. Then we have the next one is adjective. You can see on the screen. Adjectives are always used to tell us more about nouns, or they describe nouns, they modify nouns. For example, that a house, what kind of house? A big house, a small cat, a pretty girl. So they are because they are defining and describing nouns. That is why they are called adjectives. The next one you can see is a verb. Verb are the actions, or they represent the actions in the sentence, like swim, drive, live, etc. Then you can see the next one is adverb. Adverbs modify verbs or tell us the manner of an action, like how was an action performed. So remember, adverbs are always describing verbs. For example, she spoke how. How did she speak? How? She spoke politely. He drove or he is driving how? Slowly. So these are called adverbs. Next you can see as pronoun. Pronouns are the words which are used in place of a noun. They behave almost the same as nouns. So we can say that pronouns are pointing at someone or something, like you, he, she, they, in place of noun. Next is determiners. What are determiners? Determiners are, you can say, they are articles like a and the. And article and determiners, they are pretty much, same, and they can be used interchangeably. The last one you can see on the screen is preposition, which is a sort of setting a trajectory towards something, like to, uh, from, like into the house, near the mountains. So the preposition basically expresses a relation of noun or a pronoun to another word or element in the sentence. Knowing these is going to be very important in order to draw an accurate tree diagram to understand syntactic, analysis. Now look at these syntactic labels or codes which we use to represent each and every grammatical unit in a sentence. Like if we want to represent a sentence, so we will write as. Uh, you can see noun is represented by writing N. Verb is represented by V. Similarly, when you just look at the bottom, few titles, as you can see, noun phrase, is represented by NP. Verb phrase is represented by VP. So these are some of the symbols and some of the labels that you need to remember when like upcoming slides when we'll be drawing a tree diagram. Now let's talk about phrase structure rules. So before we proceed, what is a phrase? A phrase is a sequence of words or a group of words arranged in a grammatical construction or a grammatical a sequence, and functions as a unit in a sentence. So uh, this is where we start to see how languages distinguish themselves from one another, because a lot of different languages have, almost all the languages may have noun and pronoun and verbs and adjectives and adverbs, and it is the phrase structure, structure rules that basically tell us how we can combine these elements, and which orders are acceptable to form sentences in that language. So it has five commonly occurring types, or five types of phrases which we are going to study. They are noun phrase, adjective phrase, verb phrase, and you can also see their labels or codes written with them, adverb phrase and preposition phrase. So we are going to discuss each and every one individually in the next. Okay. What is a noun phrase? A noun phrase is a phrase that acts as a noun, and it functions as an object or a subject or complement in a sentence. So noun is the main component, and it can occur anywhere in the sentence. So it refers to a phrase that built upon a noun which functions as the head verb of a sentence. So a noun phrase consists of a noun, and you could have a noun phrase that can actually have only one word. However, you can also notice that around it we can have a determiner, We can have an adjective too. So what we mean by this is that they are optional. You don't need them all the time, but we very often use them to uh, describe it further, like the quality of a noun. For instance, you can look at the example on the screen. The young man, it could be the man, but we are adding young so that it can be more meaningful. The young man threw the old dog a bone. So we can see here two noun phrases, the young man and the old dog. Uh, you can also say that, you can just have a house, which is a noun phrase, or it can also be something like a big house. So adjectives modify nouns. So in the noun phrase, there can be a determiner or the, as well as it can have an adjective, but a noun phrase could be just a word. Um, Now the next is adjective phrase. Adjective phrase is a phrase that acts as an adjective because it modifies a noun. And adjective is the main component, and it can occur before or after a noun. So it builds upon an adjective which functions as the head word of the phrase. She seemed extremely pleasant. So pleasant is an adjective, so it is extremely pleasant is adjective phrase. You are much quicker than I am. So quicker is comparative degree, and much is adding more intensity to it. You are much quicker than I. So much quicker is an example of uh, adjective phrase. Okay, verb phrase refers to a phrase that composed of at least one word and the dependence of the verb, in which the verb functions as the head verb of the phrase. For instance, he has been singing. All right, so has been singing. Sing is the main verb, and has been they are auxiliaries. So this is an example of verb phrase. The child found the puppy. The child is a noun phrase. Found is a verb phrase. But what phrase or verb can stand alone, or it can also be followed by the noun phrase, like the puppy that you see in it is a noun phrase. So a verb and the noun phrase, when they both combine, we can say that it forms verb phrase. Then the verb phrase is constituted. Now look at this adverb phrase. Adverb phrase refers to a phrase that often plays the role of telling us when, where, why, or how an event occurred, or in which the adverb functions as the head word of the phrase. We are expecting him to come next year. So next year is the time, is telling us time, and the adverb that tells us time, they are called time adverbs. He ran very quickly, so it is telling us the manner of an action. So quickly is adverb, which is showing the manner of an action. Now, preposition phrase refers to a phrase that begins with a preposition in which the preposition functions as the head word of the phrase. Like he arrived by plane. Do you know that man with the scar? So by plane, by is a preposition, so it is now a preposition phrase. With the scar, so with is a preposition, and after that there is a noun phrase, the scar, but it is called, because a noun phrase followed by a preposition is called a preposition phrase. So dear students, all right, now as we have just talked about phrase structure, we can start to draw a tree diagram. Linguists use these tree diagrams to represent what's going on structurally in a sentence, and how are these different components, or how these different components are organized, and how they all work together as a well-formed sentence. So, how to draw a tree diagram? There is a sentence: "The child found the puppy." We are going to draw a tree diagram for this sentence. Let's see how it looks. Uh, dear students, the first thing we are going to do is to put as, which represent a sentence on the top, which means a sentence. So remember, phrase structure rule in English minimally consists of a noun phrase and a verb phrase. So as you can see, we have divided it into two streams, noun phrase and verb phrase. So we have a noun phrase and a verb phrase now, and we can take a lot of sentences and represent it, uh, though through this very simple tree diagram that you can see here. So now we have a noun here, which is the child. As you can see, if I can show you the annotation. Okay. So as you can see, the child here. All right. So the child here is okay. The child here is a noun phrase. The is a determiner, and we could add an adjective with it like as well. So it could be the little child or the cute child, which is a noun phrase. So when we have the verb phrase, you can see the other side. Uh, so once when you reach the verb in English, you know automatically that the verb and everything after it is going to be the part of the verb phrase. So we have the verb here found. Look at this. We have the verb here found, and once again we have a noun phrase in the end, that is the puppy. So the sentence is the child is noun phrase, which is followed by a verb phrase. Verb phrase has a verb that is found, which is the second and the past form of the verb. And then it also has another noun phrase, which is called, which is here you can see the puppy. So the is determiner and puppy is noun. So this is a tree diagram that you can see on the screen. Here is another example to understand. The cat sat on the mat. So this also includes a prepositional phrase. It has a noun phrase and then it has a verb phrase. So verb phrase has a verb sit, which is, and again the past form of the verb, and then it has a prepositional phrase. So a noun phrase followed by a preposition, it becomes a prepositional phrase. So on the mat is a prepositional phrase and the mat is noun phrase. So preposition plus noun phrase becomes prepositional phrase, and verb plus prepositional plus noun phrase becomes verb phrase. Correct. So we can draw the tree diagram of the complex sentences, uh, as many as we can, and we can use a number of sentences to represent the syntactic analysis as we have done. But the gist and the core of today's lecture is to understand the codes and the labels of representing the grammatical units, a noun phrase and sentence and verb and word phrase and prepositional phrase, and as well as to understand the right order and the organization of a sentence that actually conveys a meaningful idea. We are going to end here the lecture. Thanks very much, all of you. Thank you so much.